If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum leadership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. I love Anchor because it's really easy to use, very accessible to record your podcast, and has excellent sound quality. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Hello, I'm Ever-Changing Butterfly, bringing to you Living with an Invisible Learning Challenge, where we'll discuss the challenges and triumphs of those with NLD. In today's podcast, I'll have one of my good friends, Janine, reading Chloe's answers to the questions I asked her about her life with NLD. We will read Chloe's answers to the questions, and then I will answer them also. In addition, we will discuss the blessing in disguise of having NLD. So I will have Chloe start with giving her name and age and where she is answering from.
My name is Chloe. I'm 17 years old and I'm from Georgia.
When were you diagnosed with NLD?
I got diagnosed with NLD in April of 2020, right before my 17th birthday.
All right, thank you for answering those questions. I was born with NLD and diagnosed at 19 in 2015 to 2016, right after taking many tests for it. For me, now I'll go back to Chloe. What caused the NLD?
I'm not entirely sure what caused my NLD, but I was premature and very small when I was born. I've heard that there is a greater risk for developing neurodevelopmental disabilities if you were premature, and I had a low birth weight.
I probably got it from my dad since he was adopted when he was a baby, and back when they didn't keep good records. We don't know much about his biological family. I've read that it can be genetic. How do you feel about having NLD, Chloe?
I feel like it's a blessing in disguise. When I first got diagnosed, I felt incredibly relieved. I had spent most of my life being confused and frustrated because I knew I was different but didn't know why. Finally, I had answers. Most of the time, it feels like the world is definitely not made for me and can be cruel to me. But at the same time, I know that it's a good thing to be different. The world needs all different perspectives and ways of thinking in order to solve problems. However, there are many things about NLD that are disabling for me.
So for me, I feel that way too, because I also felt relieved after I was diagnosed. I always knew there was something different about me because I would compare myself to my older brother often and wonder why many things seemed to come naturally to him, but not me. After I was diagnosed, all the fog went away and it clicked. Now I knew why math, writing, and social situations were challenging for me. Just like you stated, I finally had answers to that burning hunch and all the questions inside about why I was different. All right, back to Chloe. What differences do you struggle with?
I have a lot of difficulty socializing. Nonverbal cues are as hard for me to understand as Mandarin is for someone who has never heard it before. I had many bad experiences socializing when I was younger. I've been bullied and teased for sounding odd or acting strangely. These types of experiences have made me very afraid to speak to people, so I stay quiet in person. But if I ever get someone's email address, I will blow it up. I find it a lot easier to communicate through writing or typing something out than to speak because I make a lot of errors due to anxiety when I speak. Another thing I struggle with is feeling my body in space. I am so terribly bad at perceiving where things are in relation to me. I have almost gotten run over while crossing the street multiple times. I'm always running into walls, furnitures, and I'll even walk into people pushing shopping carts because my brain just doesn't properly process visual spatial information. My mom sometimes holds on to my arm in the stores so that I can avoid getting in other people's way. And because of my very poor visual spatial skills, I also struggle to draw even simple things and do anything artistic with my hands. When I was 13, I really wanted to be an animator and create my own cartoon. It was easy for me to write the storyline because I've always been a good writer, but it was extremely hard for me to learn how to draw scenes. I was so confused as to why even people that call themselves bad at drawing could eventually get a lot better and I couldn't. Little did I know I had NLD. I think what also has to do with NLD is that I'm really slow. I've always moved to the beat of my own drum with walking or moving from place to place, eating, and really everything. It annoys people a lot when I'm slow. One other thing that's difficult for me is change. Anything that happens differently than how I expect it to happen can cause a meltdown. I will only write about things that I'm interested in or want to write about. When I was in elementary school and middle school, I would have a huge meltdowns whenever I had to write an essay. The essays are extremely difficult for me to write because a lot of times the topic is so vague and I'm not even interested in it. Since I have ADHD, my brain literally shuts down when I'm faced with something boring. So I have such a low tolerance for unexciting things. Psychology, especially neurodevelopmental disabilities, happens to be one of my special interests. So I could write about it all day. There are a few things that I'm interested in.
So for me, I used to struggle with nonverbal cues a lot. And I couldn't tell when I was talking too much or off topic. I didn't know how I could tell when people were interested in what I was talking to them about because I could not read body language. Now I can read some of it. I do know that when someone leans their shoulders towards you, they are interested in what you're saying. Or if they have their feet turned towards your body, they're interested in what you're saying. I remember reading that in the book NLD from the Inside Out by Michael Murphy. This is not easy for people with NLD to read but it does have very good information in there about NLD. The reason it's not easy to read is because of the vocabulary in there. I have also had meltdowns because of things changing in my life. I know that when I haven't been able to turn my emotions off easily in the past because of not being certain if something that was challenging for me was relevant to NLD, or that is why. I hope that makes sense to you. It's like I'm not sure how much of me is NLD and how much isn't. I'm also slow. I don't move as quickly as my mom does. I don't have good spatial body awareness either. I have gotten into car accidents. I think that is due to my lack of experience with driving and being able to estimate distances well. I recently did episodes on those two topics. I want to continue to thank Chloe for sharing her answers to the questions. And the next one is, does your family help you with your challenges or make them worse?
Well, when my family didn't know I had NLD, they would tease me in ways that I wasn't comfortable with. They made me feel really bad about doing things differently, and sometimes they even said that my odd behaviors were me faking to get attention. But now that they know that I have a disability, they're so accepting, supportive, and helpful. They try to do everything they can to make the world a less stressful, overwhelming place for me.
So for me, my family also does everything they can to make my life easier. They don't know exactly what it's like to have NLD, yet they still do everything they can to be helpful. They can imagine what it's like to have it when they see how difficult it is for me to do certain things like mental math, drive, or understand body language. They treated me differently after my diagnosis because then they had their questions answered too. It was like so many light bulbs went off all of a sudden. Now now they knew why I wasn't naturally good at math, writing, science, and social situations. I have gotten better at these things too because they have helped me with them. They have taught me shortcuts that helped me do better with doing math, driving lessons, reading, and understanding body language. Um, all right. Do you have any other co-occurring conditions, Chloe?
Yes, along with NLD, I have also been diagnosed with ADHD, predominantly inattentive type. Severe anxiety, sensory processing disorder, major depressive disorder, and dyspraxia. These things impact me in different ways every day. It's been really overwhelming to manage these conditions, but with proper therapy, I have started overcoming some of these challenges.
Thank you for answering. I haven't been diagnosed with any co-occurring conditions, at least not to my knowledge or by a professional. My mom thinks I might have Asperger's also. I'm not sure I agree with her though. I do know it's hard for me to match drawings of emotions with faces. For example, when I was getting getting tested for NLD, I had a test that played the audio of a conversation, and then you had to try to identify what emotion the people had in the audio. This was extremely hard for me to do because I didn't have the visual parts of the conversation to help. I also couldn't tell what their emotions sounded like from their tone of voice. I wasn't sure what face matched with what emotion. I don't remember now if the faces were labeled or not. I'm pretty sure they weren't. But don't count on this because my visual memory is the worst. Um, all right, so for Chloe, are there any gifts you have from NLD?
Oh yeah, I have plenty of gifts that I think come from NLD. First of all, I have an extraordinary memory for conversations, facts about people, certain dates, tunes, TV show transcripts, and anything that I can hear. I also have extraordinary hearing and sight. I'm really good at reading and writing. I started reading when I was 2. I started writing countless stories about magical things when I was 4. Another gift I have is being observant. I have always been so focused on small details, so much so that I miss the overarching theme of things most of the time. Also, I'm really good at planning things and making lists or schedules. That's because of my rigidity and need for structure.
That all makes sense to me because I have some of those gifts too. My parents told me that I started to talk when I was 4, read at 4.5, and write around that time as well. I did have challenges with handwriting. I couldn't hold a pencil well, so they had to get bigger and longer ones for me. It was difficult for me to write and read cursive. I do have a really good auditory and verbal memory, which I have mentioned in previous episodes. I am also really good at remembering people's names, birthdays, and faces. I do tend to focus more on details and sometimes too much. I also like to do creative writing, but not academic writing because then you cannot choose the prompt or topic. Is there something you wish the world would know about NLDers or people who have NLD, Chloe?
We're not emotionally disturbed. We're not mentally challenged. We're not dumb, incompetent, or crazy. Our brains are just wired differently. We experience the world in a whole new way. And we have beautiful souls. We have our own special smartness. If you got to know us, I promise you that we will be some of the most responsible, honest, caring, giving, and innocent people you have ever met.
I agree with you. There's nothing crazy about us. Our brains are only wired differently from neurotypical people. Consistently, we do experience everything different than neurotypical people, and that makes us who we are. We're definitely good, honest, caring, giving, and innocent people. Neurotypical people are ones that don't have a learning challenge and have a brain that is wired the typical way. They don't usually have all the challenges that we adultingers do, at least not the same, at least not to the same degree as we do. Okay, on to the next question. Do you ever wish you didn't have an LD, Chloe?
Nope, I never want to change, despite all my challenges. I love myself, oddities and all. By the way, it's not neurodiverse people that should have to change. That's never the case. It's the rest of the world who should open their eyes and sympathize with people that have different needs and try to help us navigate this weird world as much as possible.
I agree with you. I don't either because it makes me who I am. I am neurodiverse and I love it. I love myself too. I haven't always thought NLD was a blessing in disguise though, because it has made things in life challenging for me. Yet it has also made me become a really unbreakable and emotionally strong cookie. I love challenging myself and don't back down from doing it. I keep trying to solve a challenge in any way until I solve it. I love that about myself. Do you ever feel like NLD is a burden, Chloe?
Yes, I feel like I have sometimes been a burden to others because I have additional needs and developmental delays. I depend on adults a lot to help me. Even to this day, I'm still babied when around older people because They see how easily led and innocent I am, so they try to protect me.
I can understand that they do that, but I also feel sorry that they do that. I do feel like it's a burden to others sometimes because they have to do extra work to help with things that don't come naturally to me. I don't automatically know how to be empathetic for neurotypical people because I have a brain that is wired differently. But I still try to have empathy for them, especially my friends and family. I am trying to be aware of my surroundings to see if I can help my friends and family more often and automatically without them asking for it. I am getting better at apologizing for when I have a negative tone or checking back in with my parents after a negative conversation because I do want to know how they're feeling. I also am telling myself when to shut up and be quiet so someone else can have the spotlight because I tend to forget to do that when I'm talking too much. What would you tell people who suspect they have NLD but don't know for sure, Chloe?
Try really hard to get a diagnosis. Schedule an appointment with a neuropsychologist to get tested for learning challenges. Not many professionals know about NLD, but you should do as much research as possible about NLD and then take your notes with you to the testing appointment. I know from personal experience that self-diagnosis is very tempting, but it's actually damaging because you can start making changes in your life that you think will help, but they actually might make your condition worse. For example, when I started studying psychology at the age of 11, I was almost sure that I was autistic. I had learned everything there was to know about autism, but when I got tested, I was diagnosed with NLD. Even though autism spectrum disorder and NLD are very similar, there are minor differences that could alter treatment options. So proper diagnosis is key because then you can have the tools and accommodations you need to succeed in daily life.
I agree that I would, and that I would encourage them to get testing for learning challenges. I am doing this podcast because I know that not many people know about NLD or NVLD, which are the same learning challenge, just different acronyms. I am also doing this podcast because I don't like the feeling of being alone in my family and like I'm the only one who has a brain that is wired differently. I didn't realize though that I would be helping others until I got feedback from my family and friends. I hope I will be able to continue to help spread NVLD awareness because it is very important to me. I have noticed that I have been going over all the challenges that I have overcome with NLD because I want to inspire others who have NLD to do the same if they haven't already overcome them. It's like I'm making an autobiography about my life with having NLD and how it affects my life. It's an easier version of a book for me because it is all auditory and verbal, which is really easy for me to remember and create. Okay, next question. And I think this is the last one. What accomplishment are you most proud of achieving, Chloe?
One of my most proud accomplishments, if you could even call it that, is taking care of and looking out for my younger cousin on the autism spectrum. We started to spend summers together with our grandparents when we were young, and over the years we got really close. I'm proud of the fact that I helped him do certain things even though I didn't have to, because our grandparents and his parents were there too. I taught him many things, and we had lots of fun. He even helped me out with some of my difficulties once in a while. I consider myself a very helpful and generous person because of this.
Well, I definitely would consider that a accomplishment for you, Chloe. Mine would have to be graduating from UC Berkeley. Even though this happened more than 2 years ago, I'm still amazed at the fact that I did it. I wouldn't have applied if my older brother hadn't encouraged me to do so. I didn't think I was going to get accepted, but I did. I was so ecstatic when I read my acceptance letter online that I had to read it twice because I couldn't believe what I was reading. I even got God bumps or goosebumps. My mom calls them God bumps. Um, I definitely wouldn't have graduated without the support from my mom with my sociology classes for the last 2 years of college. She helped me with proofreading all of my essays. Since I was a sociology major, every assignment I had was an essay, whether it was only a paragraph long or pages long. I also had help from my GSI, Alex, who I had in my social theory classes for my senior year of college. He was very helpful whenever I needed it. We had many office hour sessions together, going over essays or tough readings. He also let me bring my dog with me whenever we met. My brother also helped me throughout college since he also attended UC Berkeley. He knew how difficult all of the classes were. He helped me with one of the math classes I took. He also helped me with my personal finance class I took. My graduation from UC Berkeley was a family effort. My dad pitched in too. He would fix my mom dinner when she would be exhausted from helping me with my essays. My dog was with me for the last year and a half of college, and she helped me survive college because of stress. She made it easier for me to get through missing my parents while being in college, so everyone helped out in their own way. Okay, so I can end this. Whether NVLD gives you challenges because of social situations, math, academic difficulties, or writing, I and others who have this still struggle within these areas today. As I wrap up, there are a few things I would like to share with you. I have recently created a website, Facebook, and Instagram account for my podcast. The name of the website is www.livingwithnld.com. Please sign up for my newsletter when you go to my website to get the most recent episodes sent to you. You can do this by going to the contact page. I would love to know what is the most difficult thing you encounter when talking to others about NLD. And if there are any times you have had challenges with thinking of it as a blessing or burden, if you are comfortable with sharing with me about those. If you aren't, you don't have to answer the question. If you are listening on Spotify or somewhere else, please shoot me an email at livingwithnld@gmail.com. If you're listening on livingwithnld.com, please leave a comment below the episode. Calm is an app that helps you sleep better by having a variety of stories you can listen to as you fall asleep. It even has videos that help you learn how to meditate and relax. When you sleep, it's easier for you to focus on everything else in your day.
In conclusion, I would like to hear from my audience if you know individuals with NLD that I could interview for this podcast. What are you interested in learning about NLD? I know I'm not an expert, but I do know I have the living experience of having it. I would like you to practice journaling about your gifts and differences. Also, see if there is a way that you can make that difference become easier for you to do than it originally was. I don't know if you are a new listener or not, but I would like you to know that I have recently learned about a nonprofit that I would like to really help. It's the NVLD project. In addition to doing research on NVLD and working to get it back on the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, that is the DSM, they provide support groups for those with NVLD. You can find the NVLD project at www.nvld.org. This is where I often turn for real-life stories I use in these podcasts. All proceeds will go towards the NVLD project. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed learning some new things today. Bye.